people ascribe all kinds of intention to things that are created. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the intention of how something is used is in no way how it was intended. And in many respects, it is, like you say, it's a bunch of guys in a room trying to figure out, how do you get something like this to work? Oh, that'd be neat. What if we call it Grunter? No, that's not going to work. What if we call it, that I think when it emerges, there's always a sense of grand design and grand intention. And to hear your stories about it, it does seem a lot more happenstance than design.
Yeah, and I don't want to underestimate the design of lots of people who are very thoughtful about the system. But if you nerd out on it, some people have talked about, is the retweet a good thing or a bad thing? And there's been people who say that the retweet's a very bad thing because it makes it too easy to spread disinformation. And I was intimately involved in the design of the retweet. And it was something like a lot of things from Twitter that we observed people using and then we wanted to do it more easily. And there was an intent behind that design. Certainly it wasn't to spread misinformation, but it was to spread quality information. It was like the idea of Twitter, we thought about at the time, it's not a social network. We kind of opposed that definition, at least I did early on, because I wanted it to be an information network. And I thought the best possible thing is if you get quality information faster and can spread, and we're going to use the intelligence of the world to going back to that original notion of the internet. It's like, it's going to make everybody smarter. It's going to make them more informed about important things. So let's build the most efficient mechanisms possible to spread when something's good. And in fact, that was meant to fight an echo chamber where you're only hearing from your friends. If there's something good that anyone could say, the retweet is this amazing mechanism to broadcast it throughout the network based on its quality, because it's an intentional choice. And if your friend says this is important and you want to hear it, that was actually the intent. And I think I would defend that decision as well. And a lot of users didn't like it because they're like, oh, they called it strangers in the timeline. I don't know these people who are in my timeline. I don't like this retweet thing. And we're like, well, that's how it works, because Twitter is not just about your friends.
Right. We all now know what everybody thinks all the time, for better or for worse. But in terms of the more high-minded theoretical communication aspects of it, like this is a way for us to spread information more quickly, or it's a way for you to get information that other people think is important into your worldview that could help expand your worldview. How much of that is tied to what you thought the business model of this whole thing was?
I think business model has a huge effect on how systems are designed, especially once they're growing, especially once they are public companies. I think for Twitter, the equation is more or less, how do we get more usage? More usage means more money, period. Then it's just a matter of what is the most efficient system for generating clicks from the right people. And Facebook and Google are dramatically more efficient at that than anyone else in the world because they have more data and they don't pay anything for content. And so once that happened, then that became the game. They just sucked enormous amounts of money out of both existing advertising money and new money. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what you say. Quality has no relevance on whether you can make ad money.
So it starts to incentivize to the lurid or to the extreme or to those things, because that's what's going to draw wider engagement, more engagement, conflict, and excess is going to sell better. Mm-hmm. I guess it's funny because it just speaks to the high-mindedness of sort of democratized communication versus the reverse engineering of those who wish to weaponize information. And that battle feels like the crux of all of this.
I think there's two cruxes. Cruxi.
Cruxi.
So there's that one. I actually worry a little less about that, about the weaponizing. oddly, because I think it's easier to identify, and it's more blatant. In the same way that, remember early days of email, like there was a lot of spam, and it's like, oh, it's just going to get worse and worse. And we kind of figured out spam. I didn't figure out spam, but smart
Right.
people at companies figured out spam, and we don't deal with spam that much.
Right. Is the difficulty there when weaponization aligns with the profit incentive? And that's what we see when, like a Facebook will come in and they'll say, hey, your algorithm drives extreme content and radicalization. But unfortunately for them, it's also their business model.
Yep.
And so that puts you in kind of a netherworld.
Yeah, for sure. The thing I worry about more is where good, well-meaning people are spreading misinformation because they believe it. If my uncle shares a anti-vax story, then it's like, well, he's
So
not
wait, that was your uncle?
That was my uncle.
I knew it was, because those were coming to my inbox as well.
Yeah. Well, these systems are efficient at spreading that information. Then it's essentially the same problem as offline media, I believe. And I think you're more aware of this than most people, I think, but like all the consternation about social networks spreading bad information, and then you have Fox News, and they play off each other at this point to an extreme degree.
Right.
But Fox News has a very clear profit motive. But the people who then propagate the stuff online don't have the profit motive. They actually are concerned citizens. And so how do you deal with the concerned citizen who has bad ideas and is spreading those to other people? In the beginning, it was like, oh, well, people will just it will be obvious what's true. Clearly that was not the case.
Well, it's in some ways, when you look back, I don't know if you feel this way, but I would imagine anybody that created, the radio or a form of communication didn't realize how quickly it could be perverted. I would imagine Alexander Graham Bell, when he made the first phone call, his second question to Watson was, and what are you wearing? Because ultimately, these are tools, and tools will always be only as good as those that are wielding them. And it does feel like we're in a moment where the tools of social media are too easily exploited by those who seek to create instability. The algorithm is driving you to see more and more divisive and conflict-oriented stuff. If the platform itself was relatively neutral, it would still move towards the lurid. But I think it's when it comes to that the business model itself is built on creating conflict and misinformation, because misinformation travels better. Crazy shit travels better than normal shit.
Right.
That's just a maxim.
Right.
The difficulty is when your business model celebrates that dichotomy. And you've been inside it. You say there's a lot of thoughtful conversation that goes around it, but I never get the sense that there is an urgency from those individuals over what exactly this is doing, how this is hyper accelerating the kinds of conflicts that we're seeing.
Yeah.
My concern is more, if that's your business model, if your business model celebrates that and you don't have something in there to help mitigate it, what are we doing?
Yeah.
It's too important, it seems, to be left to thoughtful boardroom conversation.
Yeah. I think it's a fair critique to say there should be more urgency and more to be done. It's been quite a while since I was on the inside of any of those conversations, and so I can't speak to the current nature of them. I know that there's a lot more is done, and a lot of the questions are just really, really thorny. That's not meant to be an excuse. I just think the business model is really get people to engage, and then they'll click on ads. It happens to be, you're right, misinformation and some of these things. are profitable. It's not the intent. I mean, I would say my Twitter's delightful. If you can, it's full of smart people who are.
All right. Ev Williams, he's a good follow. Hey, everybody.
I
Click
barely
on the side,
tweet.
subscribe.
I barely tweet. I'm saying the people I follow, it's full of smart people. But this is part of the reason at Medium we've totally focused on how do we align ourselves as a business with quality content, and that's why.
And you've made it subscription. It's a totally different model.
100% subscription, and people pay for quality content. When we switched to subscription, we were thinking about advertising for a while, and it became very clear to me once I thought deeply about it, is especially when it comes to content and written content, that ads were completely contrary to quality. Not just because bad information gets more clicks, but good information is expensive.
No, you're right.
It costs money. It's not just like what gets most attention, is what costs the least amount of money to create. And that's the vast majority of content online. It's like, we got to get this stuff out there. It's clicks per dollar really is the equation.